Okay, so what if I told you that a really bizarre ancient story about a plague of venomous snakes actually holds a blueprint for your healing today? I know, it sounds completely counterintuitive, but it reveals one of the most powerful truths about how God works. Let's get into it. The whole story really boils down to this one kind of wild idea. To escape a fatal snake bite, the Israelites were told to look at an image of the very thing that was killing them. It sounds crazy, right? But it's a strategy that was pointing to the cross centuries before it ever happened. So let's picture the scene. It's from Numbers chapter 21. The people of Israel are out in the desert, they're complaining, and all of a sudden the camp is just swarming with these fiery serpents. The bite is a death sentence. People are dying, and you can just imagine the panic, the absolute hopelessness spreading through the camp. Now, right in the middle of all this chaos, God gives Moses one of the strangest instructions in the entire Bible. He doesn't say, "I'll snap my fingers and make the snakes go away." No, he says, "I want you to make a bronze snake and stick it up on a pole." It's just a really peculiar solution, you have to admit. And this strange object comes with an even stranger promise. A simple but incredibly powerful one. God says, if you get bitten, all you have to do is look at this bronze snake, and you will live. That's it. No complicated ritual, no magic chant, just look. And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Why would he leave the danger slithering around the camp but provide this separate cure? The answer tells us so much about how God deals with our problems today. So often, he provides the solution right in the middle of our crisis, not by magically erasing it. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. There's a huge clue in the original Hebrew. The word they used for fiery serpent is seraph. Well, guess what? That is the exact same root word for the seraphim, the burning ones, those powerful angels around God's throne. This tells us the plague wasn't just a random snake problem. It was a symbol of a spiritual burning judgment that had entered their camp. And the materials God told Moses to use, they were not random. They are packed with meaning. Bronze, in the tabernacle setup, was the metal of judgment. It's what the big altar for sin was made of. And the serpent? Well, that was a huge symbol in Egypt for the Pharaoh's power. It was the very image of the curse, and the enemy they'd just been freed from. So you see what God was doing? By putting a bronze serpent on a pole, he was making this massive public statement. He was symbolically taking the image of the curse and nailing it to an instrument of judgment. He was showing everyone, I have total authority over the very thing that's trying to kill you. So what was the one action they had to take? Think about it. When you get bitten, your gut instinct is to stare at the wound, right? To fixate on the pain, the swelling, the problem getting worse. But God's command was to look away from the problem and look up at his solution. This is such a deep spiritual principle. What you fixate on gains power. Stare at the bite and the poison wins. But glance at the pole and the promise wins. Now, this whole event wasn't just a one-off miracle. It was a prophetic signpost, a shadow of something so much bigger. And if we fast forward about 1,400 years, the true meaning is finally revealed. Jesus himself says it. He's talking to a religious leader one night, and he pulls this story out of the history books, saying, basically, you remember that bronze snake Moses lifted up? That was about me. And the parallel is just perfect. It's brilliant. The snake was lifted up in the desert. Jesus was lifted up on a cross outside the city. The bronze snake took on the image of the serpent's curse. Jesus literally became the curse for our sin. Looking at the snake brought physical healing, but looking to Jesus in faith brings eternal spiritual healing. And that brings us to the big takeaway for you and me today. I call it the faith glance. It's that conscious decision, that spiritual power move, where you realize that looking at Christ and what he's already done is infinitely more powerful than staring at your crisis, your wound, or your failure. So how do we actually do this? How do we take this ancient principle and apply it to the anxiety and stress of our modern lives? Let's break it down into a simple, actionable workflow. The Look and Live 3-step system. It's just 3 quick steps. First, identify the hiss. When that negative thought, that fear, that poisonous situation shows up, just notice it. Acknowledge it's there, but refuse to get into a staring contest with it. Second, the 5-second pivot. Physically force your focus somewhere else. Literally look up at the ceiling or glance at a Bible verse you have taped to your monitor. Just break the stare. And third, recite the substitution. Say it out loud. That poison was handled on the pole. Remind yourself that the judgment for that very issue has already been paid for on the cross. When you zoom out, this story from the desert shows us something incredible about God's character. He's a master of turning things around. He takes the very symbol of our pain, the image of our trouble and our curse, and he flips it, turning it into the very source of our healing and our triumph. So I'll just leave you with this question. What's the one wound, that one worry, that one fear that you've been fixated on this week? And what might it look like right now to decide to break that stare and just glance up instead?